Lake Scharsee to the east, Lübeck to the north, and Lauenburg on the Elbe to the south. In the middle are over 40 lakes. This is the kingdom of the sea eagle. The Lauenburg Lakes are surrounded by centuries-old cultural landscapes with surprising new residents. This unique landscape is refuge for an abundant wildlife. When mankind leaves them alone, species diversity returns. And where ecological cultivation is practiced, there is room for nature. A cold winter's morning, the young sea eagle flies off to hunt. The fact that he can now hover over these lakes is quite a success story. Some 30 years ago, due to pollutants and collectors that stole eggs from their nests, Germany's largest birds of prey faced extinction. Thanks to the prohibition of DDT and strict protection measures, their stocks have once again stabilized. Today, more sea eagles hunt here than was the case 100 years ago. The eagles wait for the lakes to freeze over. This simplifies hunting. When there are continuously fewer open watering places, coots monopolize the ice holes. Here they are easy picking for the birds of prey, and this young eagle fancies his chances. The fluttering wings of the panicking crakes confuse him. Which one should he grab? He has the choice between many. But instead, he aims for the middle and ends up in the water. He's doing something wrong. An experienced eagle shows how it's done. He focuses on a crake at the edge of the ice hole and is successful. One attack, one victim. He's busy plucking while the adjacent crakes calm down. Any further excitement demands more effort. Perhaps the young eagle has learned something for his next outing. The old bird hasn't left anything but feathers. Back in the eyrie, he first establishes order. These two eagles have been using this nest for more than 10 years. They are one of 10 pairs in the Lauenburg Lake district. Sea eagles build their eyries in old, tall trees. Over the years, the enormous nests can weigh more than 600 kilograms. The mating season begins in February. Tall breeding trees like these grow in many places around the Lauenburg Lakes. Some areas haven't been used for centuries. Here is where tomorrow's virgin forests will emerge. Moist forests provide wild boars with spa wellness wallowing for the daily mud pack. They are already aroused by spring fever, even in the cold season. The boar finds the semi-adult and so-called defectors too young. He's interested in an especially conspicuous pig. This piebald sow obviously had domestic pigs amongst her ancestors. The male boar encircles her until she finally concedes to mate. As wild boars proliferate rapidly, young boars or shoats can be shot all year round. All too often, animals perish without being found by hunters. The carrion is easy prey for eagles and raven. But the ammunition contains harmful lead that is transmitted via the carcass to the body. Especially for sea eagles, such meals can have a fatal outcome. This one was found choking on the ground. He has to be force-fed in a special clinic in Berlin. Each test tube contains lead from the stomach of a dead sea eagle. Many hunters use special bullets. Bullets that shatter within the body of the animal and spread out. The eagles unknowingly also eat the tiny lead particles. The lead is then dissolved by their strong stomach acid. The poison paralyzes the eagles. They go blind and starve a slow and agonizing death. A special therapy is supposed to detox the eagles, but with no success until now. Experts are uncertain as to whether the birds will ever fly over the Lauenburg Lake district again. Rich in water, the region provides ideal living conditions, not just for sea eagles. Undeveloped rivers traverse the landscape and are hunting territory for the great white egret. In many places, drainage channels are being covered in order for the water to remain longer on the drained moors and wetlands. This attracts cranes. Water is also accumulated in the marshy beach forests, so that cranes can find suitable breeding places. In the ponds, they poke around for muddy plants, with which they stain their light-coloured spine feathers, keeping them camouflaged whilst breeding. Strutting around, their beaks in the air, this presumptuous couple announces to the rest that this is their territory. The best spots are highly coveted. The couple next door are already busy building their nest. The black woodpecker is also preparing his nesting hole in the hollow of an old tree. Surrounded by hip-high water, the eggs of the crane are well protected. In the 1970s, just a few cranes were able to breed here. Thanks to the damp forests, today hundreds of couples lay their eggs here in the Lauenburg Lake district. In the spring, the traditional hedgerows begin to bloom. In the past, they served as living fences, keeping cattle in the pastures as well as supplying firewood. They still protect the fields and meadows from wind and desiccation. The dense hedges of sloes, blackberries, hawthorn, hazelnut or hornbeam are almost impenetrable. This dormouse here has overslept the winter well protected for almost half the year. The little animal has become rare, as now hideaways like this are simply missing. It lives hidden and doesn't become active until sunset. And searches the hedgerows for buds and fruit, sometimes for insects and birds' eggs. Being an exceptional climber, the dormouse rarely goes to ground, as it were. But of course, makes an exception for a tasty hazelnut. Dormice have young once or twice a year. After some 40 days, the adolescents search for their own territory. The often mile-long hedgerows provide important corridors for the proliferation of small animals. They are strictly protected in northern Germany. There has to be a gap of 1 meter between hedgerow and field in order to maintain a habitat for yellow whammers and approximately 7,000 other species. The advancement of hedgerows is part of the philosophy of the Lemmerhof. This eco-business operates both agriculture and nature conservation. Hedgerows of around 9 kilometers in length grow around the Helm Moor alone, some of which are more than 200 years old. There, where today robust Angus cattle graze, was over 20 years ago an intensively used field. An enclosure was transformed into a pond. The old fence posts still protrude out of the water. Just one single drainage pipe was sealed as the one-time moor began to fill up again. A paradise for many seabirds, especially for grey geese. Meanwhile, up to 40 couples breed on the small islands of the former meadow. Grazing animals sometimes meet with fowl on the banks. The swan father finds the encounter unsettling. Just another hiss, and he has to search for food with his family elsewhere. With the water came the reeds, in which geese love to breed. The geese are safe on the islands. Nevertheless, one parent always stands guard. Foxes are keen on Helm Moor too, as hunting territory. Approaching the chicks unnoticed is, however, easier said than done. There is enough potential prey here. To be on the safe side, the vigilant goose parents raise the alarm and withdraw back to the water. The cranes, too, prefer to keep their distance. After the Lemmerhof switched to organic farming, within just a few years, a refuge for wild animals emerged. Agriculture in harmony with nature. The inner German border ran straight through the middle of the Lauenburg Lake district. After reunification, the former death strip provided a huge opportunity. The ditch along this green belt still separates two federal states. But two districts founded a cross-border protection project together with the WWF, with which to preserve the Lauenburg Lakes. And it's right here that a curious new citizen has settled in. A feather duster with long legs. The great rhea, a South American relative of the ostrich. A few of them escaped from a farm at the turn of the millennium. Today, more than 200 of them live in the wild. Ever since, America's largest birds are also Germany's largest. Being 1.40 meters tall, they easily tower above cranes. They feel just as at home on Lauenburg's farmland as they do in the open grasslands of the Pampas. In the mating season, the hens rally around the dancing rooster. But woe to any competitor attempting to take over the harem. It's not always possible to get rid of fellow combatants, which often results in bitter quarrels. The squabblers bite one another with their beaks. until one of them throws in the towel. The winner leads the hens off. Rheas are especially fond of plants. They are also partial to the odd insect or small vertebrates. Fears that they could endanger the survival of protected species have so far not been confirmed. Nonetheless, the effect that the newcomers have on the environment is closely monitored. In the meantime, crops have grown so high that rheas can hide in them lying down. For these rat-eyed birds, breeding is a man thing. The rooster's nesting place can only be made out from the air. The rhea rooster is regularly visited by the hens in his harem. The marsh harrier could prove dangerous for the clutch, but the bird of prey hasn't got a chance. The nest is always guarded. The hen has laid a further egg, weighing some 700 grams, which is roughly as much as 10 normal chicken eggs. Later on, the father will roll it under his feathers, where he incubates up to 20 eggs. During this period, every hen in his harem comes by and offloads another egg. Cormorants breed not far from here on an island on Lake Ruggelin. Their corrosive excrement has caused the trees to die. Adolescent sea eagles gather on the bare branches. As of mid-April, more than 200 breeding cormorants hunt for fish here. They are continuously attacked by the young eagles, but it is not the cormorants they are after. Their plan is to pester the fish hunters until they regurgitate their prey. That's the moment the eagles strike. The continuous attacks are more than just annoying. The cormorants have seemingly little to surrender. With their eagle eyes, the cheeky birds observe everything else happening on the lake. One has backed a branch and lets it fall. The start of a surprising game. The young eagles practice difficult prey-catching maneuvers in the water together. Transportation and letting go seems okay. But they need many attempts before their method is perfected. They change places during stick-fetching practice. Like a baton, the branch is passed on from eagle to eagle. Practice at the lake is momentarily more play than anything else. Even though it's all about attack tactics and evasive maneuvers. However, turf wars between grown sea eagles do have a certain frequency. The wild youngsters still have to be patient. Lakes and forests, wetlands and moors are characteristic of the Lauenburg Lakes landscape. To be able to maintain this mosaic, shaggy landscape, conservationists are employed, old and endangered domestic animals. Like the white-horned heath sheep, these undemanding animals carry out invaluable nature conservation work in the region as biological lawnmowers. The colourful meadows full of heath-spotted orchids wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the sheep. The rhea sheep keep the forest in check and ensure that the banks of Lake Charlesay remain open. Here is another endangered species due to become native. Jan Schneider is a fisherman and has taken on the task of resettling the laveret in the Charlesay, its natural home. With a depth of 72 meters, the Charlesay is northern Germany's deepest lake. Actually, a chain of lakes created by melting glaciers from the last ice age. Jan Schneider fishes here mainly for vendors. The salmon-like fish are a regional delicacy. There are very few of the slightly larger laveret left. Once, these fish were released into other lakes. From these, Jan and his father have brought fertilized spawn to their own specially constructed breeding facility. 50,000 eggs in this year alone. Their project is unique in Germany. They want to bring an endangered fish back to its original environment. They check the spawn twice a day. It's now time for the hatched larvae. They are now headed for the lake, initially in large net enclosures. Otherwise, the tiny fish would soon become lunch for the other inhabitants of the lake. The laveret are rehoused several times in nets with increasingly larger mesh. They are not fed. They feed themselves with plankton. Then the young fish are released. Jan Schneider wants to release them in the deepest part of the lake. Instinctively, they dive to the bottom, where they will hopefully grow to become adult fish and populate Lake Charlesay. Soon, another fisherman joins with the other. The sea eagle knows that something always falls by the side for him. Not all of the fish in the net are suitable for sale. the moment, the sea eagle needs more prey than usual. His chick hatched in the Erie. It gets hungry every 2 hours. In the meantime, 100 pairs are breeding in Schleswig-Holstein. In the beginning of the 80s, there were just 4. During breeding, there is a strict protective zone around the Erie. Hunting for wild boar in the vicinity of the eagle eyries is not allowed. A tranquil nursery for the bristly animals too. The shoats rummage through the mud for roots, worms or insects. In addition, they drink milk until they're 3.5 months old. Adult wild boars do not stop at cranes' clutches and chicks. They make their nests on islands in ponds or lakes as protection against predators. After an incubation period of 28 days, the first chick in an egg makes itself noticed. The shell has a small hole. At the moment, the chick is in no mind to reveal any more of itself. Although birth is imminent. Not every neighbor knows how to keep their beak closed. What a breach of the peace. But when one complains, the cackling often gains real momentum. One can't breed in peace anywhere. The duck is off at last, and of course, has to have the last word. The hours roll by. No chick in sight. The crane kicks the egg impatiently. The chick doesn't seem to want to be freed from its shell. Still no sign of offspring, and so the crane keeps breeding. Has he lost his chick? The middle-spotted woodpecker is completely unaware of the dramatic development next door. At last, there's movement under the wings. It's the freshly hatched chick. The kick that appeared so heartless was in actual fact very compassionate behavior. Midwifery, filmed for the first time. There's some cheeping going on in egg number 2 as well. The forests surrounding the Lauenburg Lakes are the home base of the cranes in Schleswig-Holstein. Today, more than 400 pairs live throughout the country again. On the meadow, adjacent to the forest, 2 stragglers are courting. Perhaps they too will ensure offspring. Lauenburg's forests also provide good conditions for red deers. Nowhere else in this region can boast as many as here. Near Ratzeburg, a herd of over 100 animals graze on a field. The calves are born in May and June and follow the mother immediately afterwards. They are suckled for 10 months. Sometimes the deer eat in the adjacent cereals. The mothers are off alone. Their young searches for refuge at the edge of the forest and longingly expect their mother after eating. Other animals also had offspring in the large fields at Lake Ratzeburg. Father Rhea is a single parent. After 40 days, the chicks have hatched. During the first days of life, the little ones feed primarily on insects. Gradually, they follow their father's example and also try vegetarian fare. Because they have managed to propagate in the wild for generations without help from humans, rheas are considered, juristically, to be an indigenous species. The little ones are real Germans and are defended decisively by their father. He even wards the mother off of the youngsters. Hardly what one would call reserved. The South American temperament of the chicks keeps breaking out. Whether or not the rheas receive permanent resident status in Lauenburg is still up for discussion. Far away from the meadows, fields and forests, another large bird has chosen a special place to nest. He broods in the old cathedral of the island town in the middle of Lake Ratzeburg. The cathedral was built 850 years ago at the behest of Heinrich the Lion. Today, the only tower-brooding eagle owl in North Germany raises his young here. The tousled chick flew over to the church cornice itself. but it cannot hunt yet. As long as his parents look after him, the inner courtyard of the cathedral is out of bounds for visitors. Eagle prey is rustling in the flower beds. The rat has hidden between the gravestones in the nick of time. The rat then shows off. Eagle owls are successful predators, not just due to their almost noiseless flights. The rat is unable to escape the second attack. The young owl clumsily flies to his meal. He is looked after for 5 months by his parents, before he leaves Ratzeburg to search for his own territory, somewhere in the midst of the lake landscape. Hellbach Valley, with its wetlands and moors, is under special security. With alder trees on its banks, Hellbach was the last location with otters in Schleswig-Holstein. As fish hunters, mankind systematically eradicated the water martens, with rewards for each bagged animal. Professional otter hunters moved from place to place in order to cleanse the countryside from the predators. Just a few remained in Hellbach Valley, and from there populated the Lauenburg Lake region and spread throughout the north. Around 200 of the animals now live in Schleswig-Holstein again. Kingfishers also brood on the steep banks of the Hellbach. The female with the red lower beak has 5 perpetually hungry young to feed. Fortunately, she is not the only one responsible for this. The male has caught a small perch, which it brings to the cave immediately. The young inside call out loud, but they don't bicker. They have a fair rule. The last to be fed rotates to the back, like in a merry-go-round. This way, they all grow evenly. After each visit to the cave, the kingfisher father dives into the Hellbach to clean his feathers. Since 2014, yet another returnee broods at a secret location in Lauenburg. A pair of ospreys has chosen a dead pine as a nesting place. A small sensation. It has been 130 years since the last ospreys bred in Schleswig-Holstein. As the ospreys live exclusively from fish, the attractive birds were also mercilessly attacked and killed. The parents still provide for the almost fully grown young. Skillfully, the eagle plunges into the depths and reappears, flapping his wings vigorously with the prey. For 2 months, the eagles bring fish to their young in the nest. Then they leave the eyrie. It will take a further 2 or 3 weeks of being fed by the parents until the young birds can look after themselves. Then, as of August, the Lauenburg ospreys migrate to Africa and will hopefully return in the coming years to populate the entire north. It's harvesting time on the Lemmerhof. Corn ripens here without the use of insecticides and with a lot of colourful flowers. Flower strips are sown between the separate fields. Cornflowers and more than 30 other wild plants grow here. Throughout the year, a plethora of insects find food in the flower strips, even after harvest, when the fields have long since been scythed. Many of the species are beneficial insects, like the windchat that lives on insects. Flower strips not only make the fields colourful, but help to dispense with chemicals. The female red-backed shrike is also busy as a diligent pest controller. She collects insects, many of which eat corn. Red-backed shrikes find hedgerows everywhere on the Lemmerhof and can rear their offspring in them safely. Well connected, one is intertwined with the next. As conservationists, cattle also create a habitat for other species. On the Lemmerhof, ecological is understood as environmentally acceptable agriculture and the creation of a preferably wild countryside. High above the Lauenburg Lakes, the sea eagle has returned to his ancestral home. The comeback of Germany's largest bird of prey has become a symbol of the return of rare species. And there is yet another success story. The sea eagle, lamed by lead, has been rescued in a Berlin clinic. For the very first time, a poisoned eagle could be released into the wild again. Examples such as these illustrate just why pollutants like lead must not enter the food chain, so that a treasure like the Lauenburg Lake District can be preserved.